but there are times that you kind of, you know, I was doing something the other day and we was talking about, you know, deepening a prosthetic wound, you know, without using skin illustration. And I was like, we just go back to, you know, the old eyeliners and things. And some of the old products are so good, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, we didn't even, another thing, there was no such thing as continuity. They didn't teach us about continuity or anything like that. I didn't, until I went to film, I didn't know what continuity was, you know, because again, they weren't people that were, you know, working at that time. So I don't know why they didn't teach that though, because they must have, you know, learnt it at the BBC, you know, but so it should have been fed through to us, but it wasn't.
I think that is one of the things. I mean, the BBC was always kind of sort of, you know, was always had the respect for good training and things. I think that's why so many people sort of, you know, went through there and everything. I mean, continuity has changed so much now. Now that you've got your sync on set, it's almost like everybody that gets into the industry, you kind of need a degree in how to work a computer as well, more than anything else. I mean, back in the day, you had to have really good memory.
Yes, I think what you need now is really good trainees who are a little bit more au fait with computers than we are, so that they can do it all for us, which is embarrassing to say, but
don't say that, Mark.
Don't get Chrissy started on Excel spreadsheets, for God's sake.
Yeah.
But what was it? And so, you know, when you completed, were there? I'm just letting those people. Were there? Just trying to stop here. Were there?
Why don't I ask a question whilst you're letting all the people in?
Sorry,
I'm just turn off their cameras and everything, just so that we're, because we keep getting people keep coming in with their cameras on. So you guys, I mean, firstly, I mean, you know, we don't really want to talk about. Everybody's talked about Bridgerton to you guys, and it's kind of, it's good to sort of say now that we've got loads of people listening in. There was a really good, informative interview that you did in Vogue, the March edition of Vogue. And I kind of think anyone that's listening in, it's really worth kind of sort of getting that, sort of downloading that or whatever people do nowadays and having a read of it. I sort of had a read through it and just thought it was incredible and well written as well. I mean, much as we don't want to talk about Bridgerton, it was a phenomenal success. You did an incredible job on it. You really did. And you know, and I mean, I think for anything, I think for anything that gets so much praise from all of us as designers as well, is kind of like such a great accolade for, you know, just to kind of know that, you know, you've done something that was so fun, and it kind of got all of us kind of going, yeah, well done, you guys. You know, you deserve everything you get here. But one thing, the thing that really interested me about it was your depth of all of your research. I mean, do you come from a very heavy wig background, Mark? Because the wigs were phenomenal.
yes, well, weirdly enough, both Claire and I followed the same path when we came out of, when we left London College of Fashion. Claire got a job on Chess the Musical and worked on it for, I think, about a year. Were you there? And then when I left, Claire was leaving, but I didn't know it was Claire until years later. And I ended up taking Claire's job at Chess. And they used to talk about Claire, but I didn't relate it to Claire that I knew from college. So it was really weird how our paths have constantly sort of, you know, followed each other through the time. But yeah, so I then did about 15 years in the West End Theatre. So it was, you know, wigs all the way. And, you know, it is the best training, I think, to work in West End Theatre, to get your period hairdressing skills to a fine art, because especially in those days, I mean, now I don't know if it is so much because they've sprung up all these jukebox musicals that are just, you know, a bunch of songs from a band put together. So you don't get the same kind of period things that you used to then, but I'm sure eventually it will come full circle and you know, it will go back to that. But yeah, so yeah, many years doing wigs. Yeah.
It still has, but it still has theatre. I mean, even today, like, as you say, it's the kind of, you know, it's the traditional place where people, you know, learn their trade from, as it were.
Yes. Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
a really good training as well in your people skills with actors. You know, just learning how to deal with people, because you know, it's quite a personal thing, isn't it? Working on someone's face and hair, and especially when someone's very nervous and they're going on stage. So I do think it's very good for that, because you know, it's very fast. You can't like look at it too much. You just have to get on with it. So because it's, you know, it's there, it's live, isn't it? And then it's done.
Yeah.
So I think it's very good for that. Yeah.
And with the wigs on Bridgerton, on a normal drama or film, the dressing would be much more subtle, much more real. I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't real, but these were real characters, almost, and you want to convey their story through the hair. That's one thing that we always do. And so I did things that I probably wouldn't normally do on a you know, a normal little film, or that, you know, where you just want subtlety. You know, there was nothing subtle about Bridgerton. And from day one, when we went to the fittings, you know, they wanted all these influences of fashions, and they'd been to the Dior exhibition. So everything, you know, a lot of the dresses were like little jackets, like Chanel jackets, and everything was Dior. Like, even, you know, there was no bonnets, not a bonnet in sight, because the designer hated them. So she created these little sort of, it was almost like half of a peak of a bonnet into almost like a 50s hat. So it was so stylized that I was like, we can't just do normal work on this. It has to be slightly different and a little bit out there.
Was you told that at the beginning? Was you told that in your brief when you first sort of started up? Too many camera tech things?
There was sort of conflicting things, because, you know, costume would talk a lot about the fashion thing, and then I'd say to the producers, also, you want a fashion look, and they're like, oh no, it has to be period. So you were like, oh, so I kind of just made it up myself, basically. I mean, and if they didn't like it, they would say, or if they liked it, they would, you know, but I just went for it and just drew things from my own memory. You know, I love history, I love old movies, you know, I have a massive knowledge of that kind of stuff, and I just like to mix it up and mix them together, you know, because we didn't just go with the Regency period, we took other periods as well. You know, Lady Featherington, all from her first fittings, all her costumes had this real 1950s vibe to them. So I wanted her, I made her look like a sort of Regency Deborah Kerr. You know, we kept the 50s front of her hair, but still had the Regency silhouettes. So it's just always nice to mix things up, and so that it doesn't look like, you know, exactly the same as every period drama that's been before. So it was just nice to mix it up.
And had you worked with Claire, because you talked about sort of missing each other, almost kind of shadowing each other in your working relationship?
Yeah, we'd worked together a lot, but mainly doing dailies, hadn't we? We hadn't done a full job together before.
No.
So it was lovely.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Yeah, and was it because of Claire's theatre background, or a little bit of theatre background stuff, or was it just that, you know, I think it would be great?
No, it was just we just happened to, you know, it was just one of those things, you know, who's around, who's free. Claire was free, and we was like, yeah, let's do it. It's great.
But also, I think you did put the team, you really did think about who you had on the team and had people there, didn't you, for what they could do.
Yes.
Specifically, rather than just having people because you know them. You did. Yeah. I think the team was very well put together, actually. So there was 8 of us, weren't there? And yeah, everyone had their own little sort of niche. You felt like you fitted in. So yeah.
I mean, I think that's definitely one of the most important things, I think, as a designer. And I mean, you know, I'm lucky enough to have worked with you loads of times, Claire. And one thing I'd always say is I mean, Claire can pull anything out of the bag. Do you know what I mean? I mean, yeah. And then you can. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, and you don't. You know what's so wonderful about you is that you don't flap. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, there are days, especially when you're doing a production like that, you know, where you kind of got to make things bigger and madder and wilder or whatever, or pull it all down and start again and things. And you know, you've also got an AD standing at the door saying, we need them on set. you know, but I mean, the great thing about you, which I know from experience, is that you really don't flap about those sort of things. You know, you don't have a meltdown. You just go, okay, we'll do this. And you kind of almost go, okay, guys, we're going to do this. Is fine.
I actually go into reverse. I go into an even calm. I don't know how.
I know. I do a bit of that as well, where it's just like, okay, no one's going to get hurt here, guys. We're not doing heart surgery.
Absolutely, and it will get done. Now let's just get on with it. Yeah.
I think also what helped was the job before Bridgerton. I was running crowd on The King's Man, which hasn't come out yet, and Claire came and was there a lot, working with me on main unit, and you went on second unit as well with Jules, didn't you?
Yeah.
And we just worked together so well that when the job came up, I instantly thought, you know, Claire should be one of those people. So it was great. And it's always nice having a mum on the bus.
Oh, stop it. Mama.
The working mums here, come on.
One question coming in from Grayson to both Mark and Claire is, do you have any advice on making the jump from theatre to film?
Oh, sorry.
See,
So difficult.
For me, nothing in my career has ever, like, everything has always come out the blue. With whatever with any job. Bridgerton, I got a call, and within days I was doing the job. There was anytime I hear of something well in advance, I never seem to get those jobs. And literally, the theatre, my jump from theatre was, a friend of a friend was in Romania and was having an awful time on a job. She wasn't allowed to take anyone with her, and she was only allowed to use locals. And she basically, before Christmas, had asked them to wash all the wigs before returning back to London for Christmas, and they put all the wigs in a bath and sloshed them all around and ruined them, and had a £40,000 insurance bill. And she basically said to them, I'm not going back unless I can take someone with me. So I was recommended, and I flew to Romania, and I ended up working for Mirella, who's no longer not with us anymore, unfortunately. Oh, yeah. I ended up working with Mirella for about 5 or 6 years after that. So it was just pure fluke. So I don't know how I would answer that question, because for me, it just happened. I mean, there's always the thing of just offering yourself, I suppose, for dailies. I mean, it depends on which stage of your career you're going. Obviously, I've been working for such a long time that even though my transition to film, I didn't go in as a trainee or a junior, because I was of a certain age and I had experience. So I went straight in as an artist.
Yeah, I think you just have to take any opportunity that is presented to you. Just don't think to yourself, oh, I can't do that next Saturday because I've said I'm going to just do it. Just drop everything and do it, because it's the first, you know, when you get in and people will go, oh yes, she came out for a day, or she was quite nice, or he, and you know, that's how it happens. If you put yourself out slightly, and you have to.
You've got to invest your own time, you know, and also, you know, the unfortunate thing is you still have to do, you know, you're still doing a lot of stuff for free. You know, I still think student films and things like that are such a great training ground as well. I mean, I also think, as we said earlier, that the theatre, you know, if you work in theatre, it's such a discipline. It really is. It's unlike any other. But you are working the opposite end of the day to what you are when we're working in films.
Yeah. Yes. And I mean, there is nothing like working in theatre. I mean, I don't do it anymore, but I do really miss it, because there's a camaraderie and you just laugh. And, you know, I did a lot of tours as well. So, you know, you become a family. But yes, there are real disciplines, because quite often, you know, most of the shows I worked on, you had like 120 to 150 wigs that had to be prepped every single day for the evening show. So that's a lot of work. But the great thing about it is it makes you really fast. So it gets your wig dressing skills really quick, because you have to get those wigs out for the evening show. I
remember when we do the theatre here, they do the changeover, and and I think Suzanne or a few of them from the National Theatre, and 30, 40 seconds, you've got less than a minute to swap a wig over, and I was just like, well, that's just impossible. And then you watch it and you see it, and it is possible. It happens. It is a phenomenal exercise. I mean, you obviously, Mark, you was 18 years in theatre, so you must have loved it.
Yes, yeah, I did. Yeah, I mean, I remember my second job was a play with Rex Harrison, which shows how long ago it was, because he's been dead, I don't know, 20, almost 25 years. But I had this quick change in that show where this family, the play was called The Aberfoyle Crichton, and it was an Edwardian piece, and halfway through the family gets shipwrecked on a desert island. And then at the end, they get rescued. And we literally had, I think it was about 30 seconds to get hair pieces out and get their hair back into these lovely Edwardian hairdos. We did it all with padding and, quick backcombing. But, that was my second job. And I mean, the first day I had to do that, it was really scary. But it's amazing how quick it gets you. And yeah, I did love working in theatre. There's nothing like that thing, because it's never, even people always talk about, was it not boring doing the same show every night? And it's like, it's never the same show, because something goes wrong or some, there's something funny happens, but it's never the same show. But like I said, it is just the best training for period hair.
Now, going back slightly, I don't know if when you left college, both of you, were there then, what we do, the aftercare, helping you get work? Was there any support mechanisms for both of you, or was it just?
No.
not from London College of Fashion, no. I mean, the head of the college, as lovely as she was, if you weren't one of her favourites, she weren't interested. So no, there wasn't really any of that. And I think you also, again, that was something that was never really spoken about, as in, like, even the theatre thing, it hadn't entered my head about going into theatre. They hadn't pushed, talked about, how you should go about it. I mean, like I said, it was pure luck that Claire was leaving a job, and another friend who'd been doing days on Chester Musical, they'd offered her the job. But she'd got a job on Les Miserables. So she literally just put my name forward and I got the job. But I wouldn't have known how to have gone about, they were a bit rubbish at the aftercare thing, I have to say.
So I mean, I think we got a week's work experience. If you were lucky, you went to a good place, and if you weren't, you didn't. You just got a day somewhere really rubbish. But that didn't lead to anything really, It was a different world then. I mean, it was all very aimed at the BBC, wasn't it, really? I think.
Yes. And also, because there was literally only London College of Fashion and Grease Paint, they kind of felt like they didn't need to, because there was enough work for everyone, really. Whereas now, because there are so many more colleges, it's much more important to get your students that work and get them, find them stuff if they can. I think these days it's just so much more relevant.
It is. But it's a culmination of lots of things, of like you mentioned about the continuity, and we talked earlier about vocabulary. I mean, working in film, and all of a sudden someone says these words, and you're like, oh my God, what does that mean? And you're struck with fear, or you'll be nice and calm like Claire, but I would be in fear of like, what does it mean? I'm going to look a fool. I'm just be stupid. So there's so many things that a graduate needs to learn or to know, but all equally, as both of you are saying, you've got to be out there pounding the streets and just knocking on doors to say hello. Yeah. I'm alive.
Yeah, well, we're always learning. The minute that we stop learning is the day to give up, I think, because there's always new things, there's always new products. So yeah, it's great. I love learning new skills and new, and you learn from each other, which is the best thing.
And things change, don't they? I mean, nothing ever stays the same. I mean, there's certain things you learn, there's basic methods of doing stuff, but new products come out, there's new ways of doing stuff all the time. I think you're silly if you don't take that on board and kind of embrace it, because you don't Otherwise you just stay static, don't you, and you get old fashioned. So
I mean, it's like, I mean, when we're doing our courses here, I mean, I've deliberately made the startup stuff that I get. I put the grease paint palette in just because it's such a tested thing. But you know, I still remember the day, and you're so right about new products. You've got to keep it on top of it. You've got to understand, you know, what new wig glues are coming out and how much better they are than the old ones that used to go yellow. And you know, that mattifier used to get, that I ended up using for psoriasis on people because you used a bit too much of it and it went white. You have to know your products. But I do remember, and I'm sure a lot of people you'll definitely relate to this, when Skin Illustrator palettes first come out. And when we first started using those, and we was just like, oh my God. And it's only when you realize it actually is like, it's like, you know, watercolor, you just have to keep bleeding it away. And now we wouldn't be without the palettes.
No.
When we first got them, I remember that first ever Skin Illustrator palettes, and we was like, oh, look at this, covering up tattoos, you know, we use the coral and then we can do this. And it was like a revelation, wasn't it?
And also it stays on. I mean, because everything used to come off, didn't it?
It was like when CDs first come out and people were just like, oh, you can put jam on it. You know, we was like that with Skin Illustrators. It's just like, oh, look, you can go underwater with it and everything.
Yeah, so good.
But I think it's also, it's, you know, it's, you're learning every day, but it's having that confidence to turn around and say, oh, I don't know. You know, you can't know everything. And it's you'd be a fool to sort of pretend that you do.
And that's the art, I think, of staffing your team, you know, because you're not brilliant at everything. Nobody can be brilliant at everything. So it's good to have people around you that you know a lot better at doing certain things that I can do, but I'd rather not do them. You know, I'll get someone like Claire, because, you know, Claire's amazing at her cuts and you know, little special effects makeup. She did, you know, loads of stuff on Bridgerton.
We've got one. Chloe's asking, did you learn how to dress wigs in college, or did you learn on the job?
We did. We had 2 years of. Did you have Norma?
Yeah, yes.
Yes, we had a teacher called Norma Jarvis, who was very sort of old school. But yes, no, we did wig work for solidly for 2 years.
We did loads of it, didn't we? And we used to get our hands slapped if you did it wrong. That was how long ago it was.
Yeah.
The oh, hold on, we've got a few questions coming in now. 1 second, do that. What you mentioned, Mark, so you've just designed a film and you're now back in crowd. Is it difficult being a designer one day and then being a makeup artist the next?
No, because I think what's really nice is, you know, I love having the responsibility, but then sometimes it's just nice to be one of the crowd, one of, you know, just having fun with everyone else. I mean, I'm on Fantastic Beasts at the moment, and it's brilliant because, you know, I'm not stuck at home in lockdown, which is all, you know, I had, you know, a bit of a tough time in the first lockdown, and so it's just a joy to be with my friends working and you know, and being looked after. Obviously I'm still looking for a new design job, but hopefully something will come in the pipeline soon. But this has just been a lovely job, and we've got another month to go. So yeah, it's been great. I like to mix the two up, don't you, Claire? Because yeah. I think what I think is important is if you literally just design things, design, quite often you don't get to meet new people, because you know the people on your team, and yes, you might know some people in the crowd room, but I always find working in crowd, you get to know new people that come along, and you see things that you wouldn't see if you were just designing. So it's good to know to do that. So if you have another job, then you could go and perhaps say the people that you normally work with aren't available. You can go, oh, well, I'll use such and such because they did a lovely prosthetic on this, or they did a lovely hairdo. So I think it's great to do both, because you just get to learn who everyone is and what their skills are.
I think it's ingrained as a freelancer as well to do that, isn't it? I mean, it's what we was brought up doing. You know, it's part of, I mean, every job brings its own challenges, and I you know, I know that just to be able to sort of like move around in crowd rooms and things as well, and different teams, is great because you are constantly learning things. You really are.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I love going back to low budget films. You know, I love doing a good budget film because, you know, it's big and it's massive, and woohoo, we know that it's going to come out and be on the side of a bus. But doing the little low budget things, it to me, it's like going back to theatre. You know, that sort of thing where it's a whole new. You're involved right from the get go. I think that's what we enjoy, isn't it?
Yeah, and also I think sometimes actually being in crowd can be sometimes more creative than being on the main team, because producers, you know, they want everyone to look lovely, but we don't really want them to look period. You know, just make them look nice and soft and pretty. And so you then rely on what goes on in your crowd room to set the tone of the piece, to set the period. And that can be so much more creative sometimes doing crowd. It's I mean, I've loved, you know, many jobs where, you know, when you're not on set, you're building something, or you're making something, or making headdresses or wigs, or, you know, and it's just great. It's really creative.
Yeah, but that's so true. It's so true. And I mean, I've done many films where, you know, I'd rather the crowd was the showy offy bit than you know, sometimes your principal actors, you know, they're paying big bucks to see, you know, Johnny Depp's face or whoever. Do you know what I mean? They don't want us to put a big beard on him, or, you know. But yeah, you're right. You have so much more fun in the crowd room, I think.
Now, Claire, have you done any designer jobs, and would you, you know, do you want to be a designer? Not everyone wants to be a makeup designer, or you know, what's the?
I mean, if I only something small, but I've done a few small bits, but I haven't got massive ambition. I'm happy to. I always feel like I'm sort of jobbing makeup artist, really. And I love it. And I love it when I'm on a good team, and I do like being on the main team, because I like that looking after some, you know, an actor, and having that relationship with them, which you don't really get in crowd. But I have done an awful lot of crowd, so I think that's probably why. But yeah, no, I mean, a little ITV drama would be enough for me. I wouldn't want to go and do a Chris or a Mark, you know, with a massive, you know, responsibility. So
did you design things when you were at TVS years ago?
No, I did actually. I did design a couple of small things, and then I was a designer on EastEnders, but you know, it's slightly different because you have a head of department above you. And then with Chris, I've done a few things, not as a designer, but she's left me, and I've got on with the rest of a job for her when she's gone off to another job, and they've crossed over. So I like that, because, you know,
that was great. I mean, we had a good 2 or 3 years, didn't we? When you were coming in behind us, you know, I think it started with Paddington, didn't it? And sort of rolled into, you know, from one to the other, and ended up with Peterloo going on to Aladdin, and you just enabled me to kind of sort of like walk away and get started on the next one.
Yeah.
I've got such good fond memories of that. It was very fun. But a lot of them were, I mean, my fondest memory, I think, was all of us on the bus on Peterloo, where we was literally, you know, we didn't have enough money to have a big, so get the cast out, and then we'd stand on the bus and we'd just go, okay, start bringing the crowd in, and we'd literally line up, sitting down, you know, hands here, some face there, and teeth at the end. You know, it was just hysterical.
Yeah. And we made up pots, didn't we? We had pots with a sponge in it, with loads of makeup, like dirt, you know, and then we were just going, right, dip your fingers, right, move, dip, move. It was funny. But that was great. We had like 30 cast every morning to get on set, didn't we?
Yeah.
It's that thing of having to think on your feet and be creative, you know, time is of the essence.
Yeah. And they were a bit of a nightmare with the teeth. They all had to have their teeth dirty, didn't they? Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, the hardest things in when we're doing anything period nowadays is because so many people have their teeth are over white, and you know, it's a real thing that we've had since, I suppose, since the 90s onwards, where people's faces have kind of just changed. You know, they're more immobile, I suppose. You know, obviously not mine. And you know, their teeth are too white for us to kind of get them to look, you know, Victorian or dirty anymore. And it's funny, isn't it, how things have all sort of like changed so drastically. You know, even body shapes, I think, have changed so much because of how people train now. You know, it's like, you know, like people, so their whole body shapes are different.
I mean, so we've got this, there's the skin illustrator, isn't it, for the teeth and stuff, and now we've found out that 3 of you trained in 1834. What did you used to use?
It was that paint on stuff, wasn't it? The
Tooth stain.
Tooth enamel, yeah.
tooth stain, yeah.
And I think it was a Kryolan one, wasn't it? Good old
Yeah.
Kryolan, it's still great. But it was the Kryolan tooth enamel thing and it was, you had the nicotine, the black and the white. Yeah. And because I always remember there's a lot of that from sketch shows, you know, and people wanted to have that real sort of, you know, what we used to say, which we obviously don't anymore, but it used to be almost like that American white smile, wasn't it? When it was the over white thing, which obviously, you know, they've been leading their field of it now, that's for sure. But at the time, it always used to be a caricature, didn't it?
Now, one question or a few questions that are coming in, it's about CVs and covering letters and stuff. So, Mark, I dare say, Mark, you've probably been inundated with people sending their CVs and covering letters, and has Claire as well, likewise, I'm sure. What, you know, you get 10, 50, 20, 100. Is there something that we could kind of share with the people listening? You know, what stands out? What do you look for, Mark, in a CV or a covering letter or something?
I think more just the experience, you know, because everyone will always write a similar thing on their cover letter, and you can't tell from that, you know, yes, you're keen, of course you're keen, yes, you're this, but I think it's, for me, really experience. I mean, you know, I always take the time, if somebody sent me a CV, I'll always reply. I always say, you know, I'll keep your details on file. Obviously, you know, a lot of the time, I think we tend to gain trainees and juniors through other people, you know, through people you know or people you've met. So it's, you know, that is really difficult when you're sending those CVs for people to actually, you know, I think it's quite rare to get a call from someone. I don't know about you, Claire. I mean, I know years ago when I worked in theatre, we were always needing new people, so we always went through the CVs, whereas in film, there's so many more. Yeah.
I think also it's good to, everybody does the same CV, don't they? If they've been to college and they've learned, you know, all the things you learn when you do a course. But I think everybody has strengths and weaknesses, and I think it's good to highlight what you're good at. And if you've done hairdressing, say I am a salon hairdresser, you know what I mean? All the things, you'll really highlight that, because, you know, it depends on the job and what people want. And I always I put anything anyone sends me, I put into a document on my email. So I keep all the CVs. So if you could put a little note on, you know, I put a note to myself saying, oh, you know, hair, more hair, better at hair, better at loves prosthetic. If you need someone, you can straight away see who'd be more suitable for a job.
Very true. And do you think that driving is important, or at least
100%?
Yes.
I've done a couple of college chats this week, and everything that I always say on these college chats is, you know, during lockdown, I know everybody is really hard because people are sort of wondering what to do, and, you know, the things to kind of keep yourselves motivated, you know. But I mean, why not do your theory test? Because you can do it all online. You know, for us, I know that a lot of people don't think about sort of driving and things. You don't have to own a car. Because there's, you know, you get the zip cars now, you do your car share and things. So actually owning a car is irrelevant nowadays, but actually having your license, I think, is really rather important. And even if you just get your theory whilst the lockdown's going on, that lasts for about 2 years for you to kind of sort of get into your driving and everything. I mean, people skills for me are a huge thing. I mean, I love what you're saying, and it's so true, that thing about saying what your strengths are on your CV. I think that's really important.
Yeah. Because otherwise you're
I
just getting the same CV that everybody's written. You know, I've done this, I've done that at college. But we all know that, you know, some students are better at some things and some, and we're, you know, working, we're better at some things. You know, I am not as good at wigs as Mark, you know, and you have to accept that about yourself, that you are, you know, we've all got our strengths and weaknesses, haven't we? But you can't know that about someone from a CV unless they put it on there, and so you're probably going to pass over them if it's all generic.
I mean,
I think also it's quite good because, again, you know, everything generally on those CVs are focused around makeup and what you've done, makeup and hair. But obviously when you come in as a trainee, that's not what you're doing. What you're doing is, you know, the continuity, you know,
yeah,
talking
Mark,
to the office.
you need them to have computer skills, don't you? Let's face it.
Computer skills, yeah. Which obviously most kids these days, because they're from a computer generation, they're au fait with all that kind of stuff. It's just us old dinosaurs who don't really, you know, aren't great with that kind of stuff. And I have to say, I mean, I do always, with my trainees and juniors, I'm a firm believer of not just getting them to do those computery things. You know, I always, like, all our trainees and juniors on Bridgerton all had somebody to look after, even if it was the kids. You know, it just gives them a purpose, and to feel like they're not just there to do all that, you know, the admin stuff. They are going to learn stuff. I think that's really important when they start the job.
Yeah, and going back to the driving, Chris, you know, on Bridgerton, for example, we literally, Mark, where didn't we go? We were all over the country, and we were all driving ourselves because, you know, you have to take your big suitcase because you're away for 2 weeks. We're in Yorkshire for 2 weeks. We're in Bath a lot and Bristol. Yeah. So you do need to drive. And we'd be in a field, the unit base would be in a field, and we're in a hotel 20 minutes away. So yeah, you just can't do it.
I mean, I because, sorry, Peter, because I came from theatre background, obviously for all those years I worked in theatre, you didn't need a car because you were going into central London every evening. So I didn't drive for 20 years. And then I started doing filming, and everyone was like, oh, you're going to have to start driving. And I was like, oh no, absolutely no way. I wouldn't be able to do it. You know, it'd been so long that I got myself so nervous about it. But in the end, it just became such a nightmare, because, you know, you'd get a lift with someone and they drop you at station, and then, you know, you'd still have another half hour's 40 minutes journey before you got home. And it just became, you know, it is so important to learn to drive, you know, to have your driving skills.
I wouldn't want to sort of contradict you all, but yes, I would totally agree. But we've had quite a handful of our sort of graduates, and now they're makeup artists, even Steph, who's a designer, who, for whatever reason, and actually we've just got a question here from Beth, who won't drive, won't, whatever, but they manage. You know, yes, it is a much more of a challenge. That, you know, it's a taxi, the expense is there, you know, all these things, but it's doable. Being able to drive and having your own car is obviously much better. Yes, Christine.
I kind of think, yes, it's doable. And it's funny because I was going to talk about Steph earlier, because I remember when she first started on Burke and Hare, but she was a barista, funnily enough, and I remember sort of seeing that jumped out of me on her CV. But I totally get it, and I think Steph's sort of made it work, as has Christine can. You know, some people can incorporate that Uber drive into their daily rate as an expense, which I think is totally great. I think what has really flagged up to me recently is on this job that I'm doing at the moment, the small film that I'm about to go on, we've actually had a note saying that they don't want anybody to take public transport. And yes. I think it's only a temporary thing at the moment with the COVID, but the whole thing is that what always worries me about all these new rules that are implemented at the moment, what's to stop those staying in the agreements when you're working? And you know, part of the reason that I don't want people to be traveling to work on public transport, obviously, because they need to know that they're protected and things in their own car. I just think it's a great thing to have to your bow. If it's, do you know, it's always going to help you. I mean, it's the first thing I told my boys when they turned 17. I just wanted them to have that test done just so that they had it, you know, whether they did it or not, you know.
Yeah, we've had exactly the same rule on Fantastic Beasts. The extras aren't allowed to travel on tube. Well, nobody is, and some of them have, and of course it's then caused problems, and there've been, you know, positive test scares and stuff. So yeah.
And they also say now you can't share a car on the, you're not supposed to drive in, pick someone else up. So that's annoying, isn't it?
I mean, we obviously we hope that all of these rules are going to change. Whole COVID has, you know, the great thing is, and Mark, you sort of mentioned in the first lockdown, I think the first lockdown, all of us struggled. You know, we had to close the school, you know, we were filming in Nevers at the time. And it was like we were kind of slightly the overlooked industry, you know, as far as help was concerned. And I think the great thing is that we're now the industry is still open, you know, so we're very lucky now. The only reason it's open is because of the amount that every production has to spend on COVID testing and that. And like you said before we went live, Mark, is that, you know, we can actually sort of almost feel more safe at work than what we do at home now, because we get tested so often. We're always in PPE, yes, and it's extreme PPE as well. It's the FPE2 mask, you know, so it's all you know, being put in place for it to be safe for us. But it is getting better. So I don't want anyone that's listening in sort of thinking that we're all doomed, because, you know, we are getting out of here. My only worry is that certain rules and regulations might stay in line for a couple of years, purely because of insurance. You know, insurance that films have to have for them to go ahead is so stringent at the moment.
Have we finished depressing everyone, you three? I just want to touch back on the CV thing just quickly, and as you've both mentioned about, you know, actually emphasizing, you know, other things rather, you know, not just hair and makeup, computer skills, working skills, or what they've been doing before, and what their passion is. But equally, would there be some honesty by saying what I'm really not good at is this, and I need to learn more, or is it that would be a negative to add, to mention?
Get the job first.
No, I don't think that would be negative, because, you know, you're always, you know, they're going to be learning, and, you know, from us on all aspects. So I don't think it's a bad thing to mention that, just to say, you know, I would love to broaden my period hairdressing skills or my special effects. You know, I think it's a good thing, as long, you know, nobody's going to say, well, I'm really rubbish at hairdressing, but, you know, but to say I'd love to fine tune, you know, certain things, I think is a great thing.
Okay.
I think also there is the expectation, you know, you don't have to be amazing at everything if you're a trainee, because you're a trainee. Yeah. So until you move on and then you become a junior, and then obviously the expectation of you is higher. And then, you know, you're a trainee, you're there to learn, aren't you? You're training still to become a makeup artist. Yeah. So, but I think it is good to say what, I mean, one of the students who you've had, Olivia, she's a friend of mine's daughter, and she is really good at hair extensions. She does hair extensions. That's what she does. So that's a good thing for someone to know. You know, if they're going to take her on their team, and she's already really, really good at hair extensions, you know, that's an amazing benefit, isn't it, to a team, really? So yeah, things like that, yeah.
And also, I think what you get quite a lot in say in the crowd and where we are at the moment is every now and again, Julia will say to someone, will you do a demonstration today of, you know, some finger waving, or will you do a pin curl set, so that all the trainees and juniors can watch and learn. So, you know, you're always carrying that training on. And that's where, you know, I think the crowd room is such a great place for that, because you'll learn so many things.
And it's interesting, Claire, that you mentioned about that kind of sort of trainee and then the junior, and expectations are raised. Do you both see that to kind of, oh, so you're a junior, here you are, then here's a week. I mean, do you appreciate, because for me, obviously a non-makeup background, you know, is there a fine line between junior, is it blurred, junior and the makeup artist? You know, do you give a junior a wig and expect them to do that style and do it?
No, well, I think, yeah, you say, Mark.
No, you go.
Well, I think that you would talk to them and see how they feel about, and maybe guide them and help them if they need, and if so actually they need to be honest and say, look, I haven't done much of this, can you help me? And I don't think anyone minds that, because that's, you know, that's how it works, isn't it? Because you're not fully fledged. So,
and a lot of jobs now are introducing new, sort of in between levels. So say at the moment on Beasts, we've got a lower junior and a higher junior, so they're getting paid different amounts, and just, you know, and it's just nice for them to have that stage, because, you know, people are always, once you've done a trainee for 2 or 3 years, there's always that thing of like, now I want to move up to junior level. But it's quite nice then if you've got different types of junior level, so then you know what responsibilities they can have, and that makes a nice sort of guide to easing their way into becoming a fully fledged.
And the makeup artist is just a makeup artist. You're just a makeup artist, or you're a supervisor. There's no advanced makeup artist or anything like that.
sometimes they have a senior makeup artist, don't they?
Okay.
I mean, it's all a bit blurred still, but I think they're trying to, Chris, you'll know probably, they're trying to sort of sort the job titles out a bit more. You know?
I think it's an ongoing thing, really, and I think it is always sort of like movable. Do you know what I mean? But I mean, we definitely have sort of supervisors. You know, there's definitely, even in my core team, I've got a supervisor and I've got my sort of key assistants, my sort of main assistants, and there's a slight difference in pay for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it will always, I mean, it's like Mark was sort of saying about the different levels of juniors. This is something that we've been trying to put in place for a while, you know, that sort of thing. You know, it's always been an ongoing issue as to when people move from one level to the next. A few years back, we tried to do the assessment training as well, you know, and it's kind of, you know, I think it's so hard because you kind of need all of us to put our heads together, and it's another thing where it's the devil of what we do is that, you know, we're all on different projects, you know, and the thing of actually getting us all together and saying, okay, these are the new rules. I think, you know, the thing that we've never had is a really strong union. I think Vector have got better and better, but I still think there's a way to go.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few WhatsApp groups now, like the supervisor WhatsApp group, and what's great about those is if you have a question about overtime, or you're having a problem because Netflix aren't paying this or this company aren't paying that, we have this group where people can, you know, go on and ask if anyone's had a similar experience, and you know, there isn't, you know, the strength of the union, but you know, although Vec2 seem to be getting better, I think
They definitely.
Yeah, but at least we've got each other to gain off of with those groups.
So, you know, we're getting there. Still a way to go, I think, but we are getting there.
Yeah.
A few people coming in saying, love the rabbit lamp, Mark.
Thank you.
I noticed, wasn't it?
Yeah, not Mark, just the rabbit lamp. Rachel is asking, how important is it to know how to cut hair?
I think pretty important. I mean, I find, you know, in film now, it's more men's hairdressers, it's more barbering, really, because I mean, I don't obviously tend to do that many modern day things. Most of my stuff is period, so we use a lot of wigs, and if we're using an actress's own hair, if it needs coloring, you tend to send it somewhere, to send them to a salon to get done. But barbering is a real must, I think. I mean, I just did the Kingsman before Bridgerton, which is set in World War One, and we just literally hundreds upon hundreds of boys came in for those, you know, stark soldier cuts, and yes, you know, you do get the odd barber in, but it's also the whole crowd core team have to be able to do that too.
I've
And we
used
just
barbering. Yeah, I used barbering far more than any other skill in my
Yeah.
whole time I've been working.
Wow.
Definitely know your way around a set of clippers.
I do.
Yeah.
I,
and barbering is such a different skill from my father was a barber, and I before I went to London College of Fashion, I did a 2-year City and Guilds hairdressing course. And, you know, I went to work in my father's salon in the summer holidays, and he would tell me, you know, I would be sectioning the hair, and, you know, as I had done I'd learned at normal hairdressing college. And he was like, you can't do it like that. Barbering's totally different. You have to have them in and out of the chair within like 15 minutes. And of course I did that. Well, don't tell me what to do. I know, you know, and he was right. You know, it's such a different skill. Barbering, it literally is, it's totally different from normal hairdressing.
But yeah, I think very much so. One question from Amelia. Do you look for people with makeup degrees, and would you hire someone with a makeup degree over someone who without?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just important that they know what they're doing, you know, because some people, you know, I've found over the years, there's so many, you know, I work with people all the time who didn't train at all, you know, who came from an art background, and, you know, and if you're an artist, you've done a fine art degree, you know, lots of those people have come in through different ways. But I think if they've got that background, it doesn't matter if you've done a shorter course or a degree, you know, a degree course. I think if you know your skills, and if you're creative and you've got a flair, then that will show.
And I think, like we mentioned earlier, about all the other sort of non-hair and makeup skills that you need, and as Chrissy mentioned earlier, you know, communication skills, coming across right, knowing, you know, when to talk, when not to. You know, so many elements that you need, or I suppose which you need in any job, really, not just in sort of hair and makeup. Catherine is asking any books that you would recommend, Mark or Claire, particularly period hair books.
Well, there's the Richard Corson books. There's one makeup and one hair book, which are pretty good. I know they're old fashioned, but they've got lots of drawings of different, and it's the shape really with period. Would you say, Mark? You know.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everything's online now, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think those books are Bibles, aren't they? I mean, yeah. It's like, I mean, you know, the great thing about anything that is history is it's not changed. You know, it's all there.
Yeah. Another good place is the art museum. What's the name of it? The National Gallery.
National Portrait Gallery.
National Portrait Gallery. I always find they have such amazing books with you know, beautiful portraits from those periods, that I mean, you know, the books aren't cheap, but they are, you know, they're one of the best things. If you're doing a powdered wig, you know, show, they would have so many different variations of styles in them. So I think that's a really good one too.
I mean,
but like Claire said,
sorry, Mark, go on.
No, I was just going to say, like Claire said, you know, there's so much online these days that you almost, you know, quite often don't need those books. I mean, I use Pinterest a lot if I'm designing something. That's my go-to thing, because the images just keep coming and coming and coming. You know, I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, with the beauty of the internet now, and you know, particularly, and what I say, the positive of lockdown, if there are any, is that the National Portrait Gallery, all these museums and art galleries are online. So there's almost no excuse that, you know, any would-be trainee, junior, or even makeup artist should be just trawling through all the internet, looking at periods and really honing in on their skills of that.
Yeah. No, I agree.
We used to always use, for wounds and stuff, used to always use a forensics book, but obviously you can't find those type of pictures online probably. So, and also it's a bit, you know, they're very expensive, but to get colours and of, you know, it's a dead body, we don't know, do we? So you need to reference those sort of things, and forensics books are quite good. Have you got some, Chrissy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
forensic books in our library.
Locked away.
No, they're here at the school.
One of my great stories is when Nick Buck was coming in and she was teaching casualty, and she said her mum phoned up and her mum had fallen, down some stairs, but she said, "Oh, don't worry, Nick, it's okay, I'm fine." She said, "Mum, I'm coming round," and Nick's rushed round there, and she showed her knee, and Nick she starts taking pictures of her knee. She said, "We did great reference points, Mum." Is that the only reason you came round?
We had an AD that I'm working with at the moment. We did a Great Expectations a few years ago, with Jenny was designing, and she was regaling this story that I'd forgotten about how she fell down the steps of the makeup truck and literally cut her head open and her arm. And she said Jenny instantly went, "Can I take a few pictures?" It was like the perfect time. All great, you never get to see the real one, so let's just take some pictures now.
I think most of my kids' photos of them growing up are actually them falling over and cutting themselves and things.
Black eyes.
Well, look, we've run out of time, sadly, but the last question that we ask is, a big storm's come in, Mark, and it's washed away all your makeup, and you've managed to salvage just one piece of makeup. What have you salvaged, Mark?
Oh, God. My maquillage palette, I think, would be the one thing I'd keep.
Is that big, really nice one?
Yes, the one with, big, expensive one. Because they're so useful. Yeah.
Claire?
You, Claire?
Yeah, big grease palette. Krylon.
Yeah.
Or, the mask, the Krylon is a little there's a white, a brown and a black. It's called Mask, I think, isn't it? I always use that all the time.
Brilliant. Well, listen, thank you so much for giving up your Saturday morning.
Thank you.
It's flown by.
Yeah.
And,
That's really flown by.
hopefully all of you, thank you all for listening. And hopefully it's, I've learned things. Never to invite these two again, but there you go. Listen, thank you so much. Mark, the last one, Mark, are you going to come and teach one day here?
Oh, I don't really do teaching. I'm not. I'm one of these people. I hate standing up and talking. So I've always been scared of the teaching thing.
For an afternoon tea sometime. We should just basically sort of sit and chat with me.
Yeah, that'd be lovely.
That could be a night. That we could break Mark in slowly. Yes, with an afternoon tea.
Wear him down, Peter. You will.
Well, Claire, we'll hopefully, Claire, see you, but you've been so busy lately, but hopefully we'll see you coming in to teach as well. And thank you all for coming in and joining, and enjoy the rest of your weekend, everyone.
Thank you. Good luck, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.